Legendary warriors. The powers that created us now want us all extinguished. We must join forces, or else forever be their slaves. For today, in the name of freedom, we take the battle to them. Let's roll.
Here in moments.
The ultimate gayless spectacle.
Holy Mother of God on earth and in heaven at the exact same time.
You want a piece of me? You got it!
Shall we play a game?
And Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel has a surprising message for his fellow Democrats. Lower your expectations. Emanuel says if Dems think they're going to win back Congress in 2 years, think again.
It took us a long time to get this low. It ain't going to happen in 2018. Take a chill pill, man. You got to be in this for the long haul. And if you think it's going to be a quick turnaround, like that, it's not.
Emanuel also says too many Democrats care more about being right than winning elections. He urged the party to unite and create a, quote, farm team of candidates.
President Trump is pushing to undo a lot of his predecessor's legacy, but one action of the Obama administration is completely intact. Last May, a decree from the Departments of Justice and Education ordered all public schools to let their transgender identifying students use whichever bathroom they wanted to use, even if it didn't match their physical sex. That order is still in force. And in an odd twist, conservative Christians, evangelicals, and radical feminists are teaming up to fight it. Kara Dansky is the board chair for Women's Liberation Front. It's a self-described radical feminist group that strongly opposes President Obama's order, and she joins us now. Kara, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Normally, you'll describe someone as a radical feminist, and they will take offense, but you describe yourself that way.
Well, you might describe someone, and they might take offense, but I'm proud to call myself a radical feminist.
Interesting. So I just want to establish that you are not on the right at all in any way, and yet you've made common cause with people who are.
Agreed.
The line that struck, I was reading your views on this, the line that struck me was, this is more than about bathrooms. What does that mean?
This goes far beyond bathrooms. And so when people talk about this as a bathroom bill or a bathroom controversy, it's really not about that for us. In part, it goes to within the realm of like bathrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, shower rooms, what the interpretation of sex to mean gender identity means is that potentially any male who self-identifies as female can access any women's bathroom, locker room, changing room, etc., dormitory, school. Yes. But it goes even far beyond that to redefine women and girls to mean essentially anyone who identifies as a woman or girl for purposes of Title IX, which matters to us because we think that women and girls are a meaningful category worthy of civil rights protection.
You go on to say this is about the erasure of women and girls. What does that mean, the erasure?
Well, Title IX was enacted in 1972 specifically to remedy centuries of discrimination against women and girls because women and girls had been discriminated against in and excluded from the educational arena for thousands of years, at least hundreds of years. And Title IX was specifically enacted in order to remedy that. But now, if we define sex under Title IX to mean gender identity, what we're essentially saying is that women and girl can mean anyone who self-identifies as a women and girl, which renders the category women and girls meaningless as a category. And it goes further than that. We see this in language all throughout society. We see, for example, women are no longer allowed to talk about body parts. We're not allowed to talk about pregnant women. We have to talk about pregnant people. We're not allowed to say that women have certain kinds of body parts. Language is degrading. We're seeing the erasure of women and girls as a meaningful
language
category.
And thought along with it. So acknowledging biological reality is now hate, in other words.
Yes.
So how, as someone on the left, I think it's fair to say, what has your life been like since you've said something like this publicly?
Well, what most of us who say things like this publicly receive is a lot of hate online, threats. We're called transphobic bigots because we ask questions about gender identity And then it goes further. We are often threatened with rape and death. We're told that we need to shut up and go die in a fire because we're asking questions and we're standing up for women and girls. And that seems to be not permitted. And it's interesting to me that specifically the word bigot is used, because the word bigot means someone who is intolerable toward another's views. Right. And I'm open to other views. Like, I am open. If I'm wrong about this, I will own it. If someone can demonstrate to me that there's some legitimacy to gender identity ideology, then great. I'm
rooted in, for example, science.
Sure. I'm completely open to that. But instead what we see is when women and girls stand up and say, wait a second, what do you mean by gender identity? Like, I am a woman because I am an adult human female, which is the dictionary definition of woman. We are shut down immediately and told that we're transphobic bigots.
I've never thought I would say anything nice about a radical feminist group, but you said, we exist to protect all women and girls regardless of political affiliation, and I just want to say thank you for saying that.
It's true.
That's good for you. You're rare. Thanks a lot, Kara.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about what happened overnight with Senator Elizabeth Warren on the floor of the Senate. She was asked to conclude her remarks based on the maligning, so to speak, of another U.S. Senator, that being Jeff Sessions, now nomination, still debated to be the next Attorney General. You, by some Republicans a few years back, were criticized for going after Senator McConnell on the floor of the Senate. Is this different or not now, Senator?
Well, listen, it's another example last night of what I said a minute ago, Bill, which is that the Democrats are angry and they're out of their minds. We're seeing in the Senate Democrats objecting to every single thing. They're boycotting committee meetings. They're refusing to show up. They're foaming at the mouth practically. And really, where their anger is directed, it's not at Republicans. Their anger is directed at the American people. They're angry with the voters. How dare you vote in a Republican president, a Republican Senate, a Republican House? They are right now embracing what many of the Senate Democrats are taking as the lesson of this election was that Hillary was too moderate. And they need to go more Elizabeth Warren, more Bernie Sanders, more extreme and on the fringes. I think that's really unfortunate. And I think last night you saw that with Elizabeth lashing out at Jeff Sessions and really lashing out at the American people because she's angry about the election.
Should she have been able to continue or not? Or wasn't she, perhaps you can make a case, playing by the same rules that you were playing by, Senator?
Well, listen, I wasn't there on the Senate floor last night. I was actually over on another network on CNN in a 2-hour debate with Bernie Sanders on Obamacare. And I got to say, at the time, we were having the sorts of debates that I think ought to happen a lot more often. On most issues in politics, you get 60 seconds or 90 seconds, and everyone talks through their talking points, and you're done. We spent 2 hours in a town hall with CNN answering questions, delving down.
I watched part of that, but the left is fired up, and Elizabeth Warren is in part helping to lead that charge.
And I got to say, by the way, that the charges that she was making against Jeff Sessions are demonstrably false. They're slanderous. They're ugly. And it's one of the crutches. When the left doesn't have any other arguments, they go and just accuse everyone of being a racist. And it's an ugly, ugly part of the modern Democratic Party. Jeff Sessions is an honorable, decent person. The charges that she was recounting, Senate Judiciary Committee, we had extensive hearings. We heard from witnesses, people involved in these false charges. And I'll point out, listen, the Democrats are the party of the Ku Klux Klan. You look at the most racist, you look at the people, the Dixiecrats. They were Democrats who imposed segregation, imposed Jim Crow laws, who founded the Klan. The Klan was founded by a great many Democrats, and yet now the Democrats just accuse anyone they disagree with of being a racist. That was a false smear of Jeff Sessions, and I think he's going to make an extraordinary Attorney General. After 8 years, we deserve an Attorney General who'll be faithful to the law and faithful to the Constitution.
Last question.
But a split tonight between the president and his Supreme Court nominee over the sharp language that the president has used in attacking the ruling against his immigration ban. Judge Neil Gorsuch telling Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal tonight that he found the verbal attacks that the president has been leveling at members of the judiciary disheartening and demoralizing. A White House official tonight said that Judge Gorsuch was merely stating his views, and there is no sign at this point that the president is about to back off.
It's INA 212F 8 USC 1182F. Suspension of entry or imposition of restrictions by the president.
While the Ninth Circuit ponders the fate of his immigration ban, President Trump gave a public lesson in the law today. Reading the statute, he says, gives him the authority to do it.
A bad high school student would understand this. Anybody would understand this.
The president is on the warpath against the courts, tweeting that federal district judge James Robart's order to suspend the immigration ban was horrible, dangerous, and wrong, warning if the U.S. does not win this case, as it so obviously should, we can never have the security and safety to which we are entitled. Politics. And he was not impressed with what he heard from the Ninth Circuit last night.
I listened to a bunch of stuff last night on television that was disgraceful. It was disgraceful. Because what I just read to you is what we have. And it just can't be written any plainer or better.
In oral arguments, the court zeroed in on the president's intent and what he repeatedly said on the campaign trail. Is the executive order a Muslim ban in sheep's clothing, written to include everyone, but really targeting Muslims?
This is Judge Clifton. Do you deny that, in fact, the statements attributed to then-candidate Trump and to his political advisors, and most recently Mr. Giuliani, do you deny that those statements were made?
Judge Clifton, no. I would note that Judge Robart himself said that he wasn't going to look at campaign statements.
A highly, highly respected judge in Boston ruled very strongly in our favor.
The president pointed repeatedly to a federal judge in Boston who suspended the executive order in its opening hours but reinstated it after determining it did not single out Muslims. The press secretary today said the order is on solid ground legally.
We've got to go back and remember that the DOJ's Office of Legal Compliance vetted this order, deemed it was legal, so we've followed the entire process to make sure that this was done correctly, constitutionally, legally, and every otherwise.
But the president seemed to be bracing for a negative decision from a notoriously liberal appellate court.
And I don't ever want to call a court biased, so I won't call it biased. And we haven't had a decision yet. But courts seem to be so political. And it would be so great for our justice system if they would be able to read a statement and do what's right.
If the president does get a favorable ruling from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, he will restart his immigration ban immediately. If he doesn't, he'll have to fight out the constitutionality of the order in district court in Seattle, a process that could take months. And James, one other piece of business from the White House tonight. Fox News has learned that an executive order is circulating at the White House for comment that would make good on another of the president's campaign promises to keep the detention center at Guantanamo Bay open indefinitely. James?
No shortage of news at the White House, John Roberts.
Never.
Thank you.
For more on this now, the judge, Anna Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst with us in studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
It's nice to be with you last evening while this case was unfolding.
Yes.
There's a lot we did not know then, frankly, that we have a better view of now. Right. You heard the arguments, you listened to both sides, and what was your impression, shall we say?
My impression was that the president has a very legitimate complaint that the judges sounded political. Now, Lyndon Johnson used to say there's two things you don't want to watch being made, sausage and legislation. You can add judicial opinions to that, because sometimes judges say things to throw the audience off or to challenge lawyers. Having said that, you and I heard a lot of political questions like, did the president conduct any studies before he singled out these 7 countries? That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how he chose these seven countries, because the Constitution gives the president the sole authority to make foreign policy, and Congress has given the president the sole ability to suspend immigration from whatever countries he wants for whatever reasons he wants, as long as in his mind it's based on national security. So those issues were not before the court.
You heard other questions, though.
Yes, I did hear questions.
That made you shake your head, I believe.
Yes, I did shake my head when these judges went to the merits, the wisdom of what President Trump did. That is not their job. My late friend, the great Justice Scalia, used to have as a joke a sign on his desk with 3 words on it: stupid but constitutional. Basically saying, I don't care about the wisdom of what the government did. I only care if it's constitutional.
It's an epic line. More from the president from last hour making his case, literally.
I listened to a bunch of stuff last night on television that was disgraceful. It was disgraceful. Because what I just read to you is what we have. And it just can't be written any plainer or better.
He's exactly right. Here's what he's talking about. The statute, which he quoted a few minutes before he made that statement, which expressly says the president may, in his own discretion, suspend immigration of any person or group for any reason he deems necessary. He may do it by proclamation. It's not for the courts to approve. The only issue last night was, do the states of Washington and Minnesota have the standing to bring this case? Because there's no harm to those states. They're suing on behalf of people in their states, which is really against federal rules. If they do have standing, and the case can go forward, did a federal judge do the right thing by interfering with the ability of the President of the United States to run the foreign policy of the United States of America? Instead, these are why the President's complaints are perfectly valid. We heard questions that were political. Well, isn't it true that this is a Muslim ban? Well, A, that's not true. B, it's the wrong question. It's an improper question to ask. Did the Obama State Department agree that these 7 countries are dangerous? Again, wrong question to ask. The answer is irrelevant to whether or not the president properly exercised his authority or whether this judge in Seattle properly interfered with him.
This case is narrow. The White House is arguing national security.
Correct.
Regardless of the outcome, this will continue because there are numerous cases out there, Judge, that still exist and could be collated into one case.
I suggested to you last night that the Chief Justice of the United States consolidate the now 47 lawsuits in federal court in one court before one judge at one time so that all the issues can be fleshed out right there rather than having 47 trials over the same case.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome, Bill.
We will call on you shortly again.
A pleasure.
Do not go far.
It would be so great for our justice system if they would be able to read a statement and do what's right. And that has to do with the security of our country, which is so important. I think it's sad. I think it's a sad day. I think our security is at risk today.
All right, some interpret that as subtle pressure to get those 3 Circuit Court of Appeals judges out in San Francisco to go his way and accept his right to do what he did by this travel ban or better vetting, whatever you want to call it. Others saying he might have doomed that by saying what he said. I don't know who's accurate. I do know that this fellow is very worried about our security regardless. He's retired 4-star Army General Jack Keane. General, good to have you. We'll know probably tomorrow sometime how these judges rule, but invariably it'll probably go all the way up to the Supreme Court. But that would also mean we'd be waiting that long for this to be enacted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a sad commentary here. I don't think judges at any level in our judicial system should be making judgments about the security of the United States. I mean, that is something we clearly give to the executive branch. He has access to all of the information, largely classified information from our intelligence sources, to be able to make judgments as he has made. And it's certainly the American people can comment on what those judgments are, but I don't think a judicial system should be anywhere nearly involved in this.
You know, General, I'm no lawyer, but I talk to those who are, who say that the line of questioning, the tone of questioning coming from at least 2 of those judges seems to indicate they will not do what Donald Trump wants them to do, which means that this does get kicked up to the Supreme Court, and at this point it's a 4-4 court, which would default back in the case of a tie to what these judges rule. Now, I'm getting way ahead of myself, sir, but only to mention the point here that this keeps this open-ended for quite a while.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And the facts get trampled on here, too, because the focus has been on these 7 countries. And you know, Neil, we take in about 1 million immigrants a year in this country.
That's right.
And Mr. Trump has not said that he is going to decrease those numbers at all. So we still will be the #1 intaker of immigrants in the world. Number two, the refugee program averages between 50 and 100,000 over the last 6 or 7 years. He has cut that to 50,000, but it's still within the margin of the refugees that we normally take into the country. What he has said is, I'm concerned about our vetting process, particularly coming from 7 countries where the governments we know either do not exist as governments because they're failed states, or we know they do not have an adequate vetting process to give us any assurances that those coming out of those countries are indeed who they say they are. That is reasonable for a president to make that judgment. The Congress has made the same judgment, and his predecessor had made a similar judgment about those countries. It's unfortunate because there's so much anti-Mr. Trump in this nation that we have lost sight of what is truly happening.
I've never seen so much paper on a president's desk. And it's because we're negotiating lots of deals for our country, which will be tremendous. And I just want to introduce Brian Krasanik, who's the CEO of Intel, a great, great company. And Brian called a few weeks ago and said we want to do a very big announcement having to do with our country, but also having to do mostly with Arizona and the jobs and the great technology that will be produced. So this is Brian, and Brian, why don't you say a few words and maybe also talk about the product you're going to be making. It's amazing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor to be here today representing Intel and to be able to announce our $7 billion investment in our newest, most advanced factory, Fab 42 in Chandler, Arizona. So we'll be completing that factory to make the most advanced 7-nanometer semiconductor chips on the planet. Intel is very proud of the fact that the majority of our manufacturing is here in the U.S. and the majority of our research and development is here in the U.S., while over 80% of what we sell is sold outside of the U.S. And we're consistently one of the top 5 exporters in the country and one of the top 2 research and development spenders in the United States. And we've been able to do that even while the regulatory and tax policies have disadvantaged us in the past relative to the competition we have across the world. And Fab 42 is an investment in Intel, but also the U.S.'s future in innovation and leadership in the semiconductor industry. And Fab 42 will employ approximately 3,000 direct, high-paying, high-wage, high-tech jobs at its peak, and over 10,000 people in the Arizona area in support of the factory. And this factory will produce, as I said, the most powerful computer chips on the planet, powering the best computers, the best data centers, autonomous cars. All of these devices are the most powerful computing devices on the planet. And at Intel, we have a simple saying that says, while other people predict the future, we build the future. And this factory is a great example of that. I want to thank the President for this opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Brian. And you have something over there that will show a little bit about the new product.
This is an example of the wafer that will be built in Fab 42. This is one of our newest 10-nanometer silicon wafers. 7 nanometers will be built in Fab 42. And this is the future of computing.
Did you have any questions for Brian? I know you have none for me, so how about for Brian?
Are you going to bring back jobs? The other business you have outside of the country, do you plan on bringing them back here?
This is actually expansion. This is about growth. So this position is actually about growth and new jobs in the U.S.
Great thing for Arizona. Unbelievable company and product, and we're very happy. And I can tell you the people of Arizona are very happy. It's a lot of jobs, and probably the investment. What do you say your total investment will be what?
Total investment in just this factory is $7 billion. But if you take Arizona, we already have 2 other factories in Arizona. So we have several tens of billions of dollars of investments in factories in Arizona. We're the #1 private employer in Arizona.
And how long have you been planning this investment?
We've been working on this factory for several years. We've held off actually doing this investment until now.
Was there something that President Trump did or said that went
wanted to make you want to announce this here and then?
It's really in support of tax and regulatory policies that we see the administration pushing forward that really make it advantageous to do manufacturing in the U.S.
Thank you, Press.
Fox News Radio, I'm Kathleen Maloney. A confirmation vote expected tonight for another of the president's cabinet nominees. Fox's Jared Halpern is live with the latest.
Voting is underway, but through last night and into this evening, Senate Democrats have tried to make the case to deny colleague Jeff Sessions the Attorney General job.
I do not have confidence in his ability to be a champion for civil rights.
Virginia Democrat Tim Kaine also questions Sessions' independence. South Carolina Republican Tim Scott responds.
Senator Sessions is a man of great character and integrity with a commitment to fairness.
Massachusetts Democrat Elizabeth Warren was ordered to sit out for much of the debate. GOP leaders say she broke Senate rules in her attack of Sessions, in part by reading a letter from Martin Luther King Jr.'s widow opposing Sessions' nomination to be a federal judge 3 decades ago. Kathleen.
Thanks, Jared. President Trump's Supreme Court nominee has told a Democratic senator that he finds the president's attacks on the judiciary disheartening and demoralizing. Judge Neil Gorsuch met with Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal. Newly appointed Education Secretary Betsy DeVos trying to mend fences with educators, parents, and her opponents after a tough confirmation battle.
Let's recognize that while we may have disagreements, we can and must come together, find common ground, and put the needs of students first.
DeVos addressing staff members at the Education Department. People in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast will wake up to a winter wonderland Thursday morning.
The morning commute from D.C. through Philadelphia and New York looks to be treacherous. This will be a short-lived storm, but a very powerful storm.
Fox meteorologist Rick Reichmuth, 6 inches to over a foot of snow is forecast in some places. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced. Confirmation from the Pentagon that U.S. forces killed 11 al-Qaeda operatives in 2 airstrikes in Syria this month. One strike killed an al-Qaeda member with ties to the group's senior leaders, including the late Osama bin Laden. President Trump and Iran's leader are feuding on social media.
The President of the United States and Iran's supreme leader are engaging in direct confrontational diplomacy over Twitter. The Trump administration has issued a new round of U.S. sanctions against Iran, and officials warn those measures are just initial steps. Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted, quote, "Trump says, be scared of me. No, Iranians will respond to such words with February 10th rallies and will show what is their position towards threats." President Donald Trump has tweeted, quote, "Iran is playing with fire. They don't appreciate how kind President Obama was to them, not me." At the State Department, Rich Edson, Fox News.
The White House defending the president's tweets, slamming Nordstrom after the national retailer dropped his daughter Ivanka's clothing line.
There's clearly efforts that to undermine that name based on her father's positions on particular policies that he's taken. This is a direct attack on his policies and her name.
White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Nordstrom says it decided to discontinue Ivanka's brand because it wasn't selling well. The CEO of Intel is promising a $7 billion investment in Arizona that will employ 3,000 factory workers and an additional 10,000 support workers.
Great thing for Arizona. Unbelievable company and product, and we're very happy. And I can tell you the people of Arizona are very happy. It's a lot of jobs.
President Trump met with Intel CEO Brian Krzanich at the White House. He's planning to build the newest, most advanced factory.
Soul.